Flick tried to save his colony and nearly got them all killed. Not because he was stupid, not because he didn't care, because he believed the wrong thing about how the world works. Something this movie shows you over and over, but never says directly. Everyone calls A Bug's Life a story about teamwork. It's actually about fear, and the kind of fear that makes you accept a system that was never meant to be fair. And if you're being honest, you've probably gone along with something like that before. It starts with a leaf. Every season the ants gather food, not for themselves, for the grasshoppers. It's not a trade, it's not protection, it's control. Hopper shows up, takes everything, and leaves just enough for the ants to survive and repeat the cycle. That's the system, and nobody questions it. Not because they agree with it, but because they've learned what happens if they don't. Flick doesn't fit into this. Not because he's lazy, because he thinks. He builds machines, tries new ideas, looks for easier ways to do the same work. And every time he does, something goes wrong. Not always because the idea is bad, but because the colony isn't built for change. It's built for obedience. There's a moment early on where his invention knocks the entire food offering into the water. Watch what happens. Nobody asks how it happened. Nobody asks why they're even doing this in the first place. They just panic because Hopper's coming. That tells you everything. The ants aren't working for survival anymore. They're working out of fear. Fear doesn't just control behavior. It controls imagination. It makes you stop asking better questions. Like, why are we feeding them at all? Flick gets blamed. Of course he does. When a system is built on fear, the person who disrupts it becomes the problem, not the system itself. So they send him away, not to fix anything, just to get rid of the discomfort he causes. And what they ask him to do sounds simple. Go find warriors, bring back help, save the colony. Flick leaves thinking he needs stronger ants, bigger fighters, someone who can stand up to the grasshoppers. That's the blueprint in his head. Strength beats fear, power beats control. Makes sense. It's also wrong. He ends up in the city, meets a group of bugs who look like warriors, confident, loud, skilled. Except they're not warriors, they're performers, a circus troupe, misfits pretending to be something they're not. And Flick doesn't notice, because he's not actually looking at who they are. He's looking at what he needs them to be. And that's where the movie quietly flips, because now you've got two layers of pretending. The ants pretending they have no choice, and the circus bugs pretending they're something they're not. Everyone's acting. Nobody's honest. And somehow this is the group that's supposed to break the system. They get back to the colony, and the lie continues. Flick presents them as warriors. The ants believe it, not because it's convincing, but because they want to believe it. Fear does that. It makes weak solutions feel like strong ones as long as they promise safety. But nothing actually changes. The ants are still scared, still collecting food, still waiting for Hopper. The warriors don't fight. They perform. They distract. They improvise. And for a while it almost works. Not because they're strong, but because nobody's questioning the illusion. Then Hopper comes back, and everything collapses. The lie gets exposed. The warriors aren't warriors. Flick isn't a hero, and the colony turns on him again. Same pattern, same reaction. Blame the disruption, protect the system. But this time, something's different. Hopper says the quiet part out loud. He explains why they keep the ants afraid. Because if the ants ever realized how many of them there are compared to the grasshoppers, the whole system would fall apart. That's the truth the movie's been building toward. The ants were never weak. They were convinced they were. There's a difference, and it's a dangerous one. Because once you believe you're small, you stop acting like you have power, even when you do. Flick hears that, really hears it, and for the first time, he stops trying to bring in outside solutions. No more fake warriors, no more pretending. He turns back to the colony and actually tells them the truth. Not a plan, not a performance, just the reality they've been avoiding, and they don't change immediately. That's important. Fear doesn't disappear because someone gives a speech. It takes pressure. It takes a moment where doing nothing feels worse than pushing back. That moment comes in the storm. Chaos everywhere. Plans falling apart. And in the middle of it, the ants finally stopped running. Not because they became brave overnight, but because they ran out of space to hide. And when they stand together, Hopper loses control instantly, not gradually, not after a long fight, immediately, because his power was never physical. It was psychological.